Well, welcome back, Airgunners. This is Zach from the Shooter Zone, where we are always staying on target. Alright, day 2 with the Pinty Nightfall 22 caliber. Now, if you watched my first video, I had mentioned, as other people have, that the trigger is really heavy and has a lot of creep and all that on this. So, yesterday, I decided, what the heck, let's take it apart. So I took it apart and cleaned up the sear quite a bit and reduced the height of the sear, so this way the trigger disengages from the sear disengages from the hammer a little bit sooner, and I like where it's at. Now, I'm not going to go through step by step with a video on how to do this. It's not hard. You know, if you work on your own air guns, it isn't hard to do. So I just want to give you some quick tips on doing it, because when I was taking it apart, I realized that there were a couple things that I wish I had known before I started taking things apart. So the first is this: you just want to take apart the grip. You want to remove the grip from the body here, and that's only one Allen screw. There's one Allen underneath the foregrip. Now, once you remove that screw, this slides all the way off down the Picatinny rail and comes off. It is a little bit snug on there, so keep that in mind. Also, just so you know, when you remove the bolt for the grip, there is a little circular piece in here in which the grip screw or bolt screws into. This comes out, so you want to be careful that you don't lose that, because that'll fall out if you turn the air gun on its side. The same goes for up here. This one up here will also come out, but what I found was that one stays in place a lot better than this one. Alright, as you're starting to remove this foregrip, this trigger guard here extends all the way down here. And there's a purpose for that, is because underneath this plate for the trigger guard, which is exactly the same thickness and everything going all the way down, it holds down a little spring. So when you're doing this, do everything like this. First off, put it in something in which the air gun stays like this, and it'll be much better for you. Alright, so as you're sliding this forward, removing it, hold down this trigger guard plate that's underneath it. And then this way, when you remove this all the way, you can start to lift off the trigger guard, and you'll see the spring under there. Take the spring out, make sure you put it in a nice safe spot, so this way you don't lose it. There is another plate under that. That gets removed also. When you have it upside down and you have everything done to this point, just look at everything. Just, you know, be aware of how everything goes together. Take a picture of it if you need to. All of that kind of stuff, so this way you're prepared when you put it back together. Alright, so the next thing you want to do is you want to remove the portion of the sear that holds the hammer. Right? There's only one pin that you have to push out, and mine pushed right out when I pushed it from, I think it was from the right side out to the left side. And it only goes in and out one way because there is this kind of knurled part at one end, in which only allows it to go in one way and out one way. So keep track of that. If you're pushing on it and it's not coming out, try the other way, because you know, someone could probably put it in either way. So you have to just know which way it's in there first. When you remove that pin, then the sear comes out. Now the sear goes underneath this midsection portion of the trigger assembly. So just be aware of that, because when you put everything back together, you need to make sure that that back part of the sear is underneath that other piece, else the trigger will not work. So keep that in mind. Make sure as you're putting everything back together and you're holding everything together before you put this back on, that you're checking to make sure that the trigger is moving. If the sear if the sear is on top of that piece and not under that piece, this will be locked up. It won't move at all. All right, so you take out that pin, remove the sear. Now, again, keep in mind, look how everything is. I suggest even cocking it at that point before you remove the pin and before you remove the sear, and you'll see how the sear catches the hammer. And that'll give you a really good idea on what you need to do as far as trimming down that piece and polishing that piece. Now, once you have that sear piece out, the main thing is polishing it. Polish the contact point in which it's meeting the hammer, and polish the point in which that mid-section of the trigger assembly is riding on the sear to disengage it. Polish those very, very well. I use just regular high grit sandpaper. You know, if you have metal sandpaper, that works the best, but you could probably use wood sandpaper too and it'll be all right. The metal holds up a lot better, the metal sandpaper. This piece is a hardened steel piece, just so you know. Now here's my suggestion. After you get through polishing those two pieces, and again, it doesn't matter which order you do it in, you could do the polishing last. When you start to reduce the height of the sear portion that catches the hammer, don't use a grinder. And there's one gentleman who used a grinder because, again, this is hardened steel. And if you take off too much, there's no returning from that. What I find is this. Polishing everything, in some ways, to me, is better than how much you reduce the height of the sear that catches the hammer. Because I like it just to be clean, right? I don't like it to be, you know, with a lot of grit and hitch and stuff like that in my trigger. I don't mind if the trigger is a little bit on the heavy side, just as long as it breaks nice and clean. So that's how I like it. Now again, as you're reducing the height of that portion that catches the sear, again, there's a point of no return, and I can't tell you in millimeters how much to take off and how much not to take off. I probably only took off, I don't know, I don't think it was a 1/2 millimeter, something like that. And again, don't hold me to that because every air gun's a little bit different. So a 1/2 millimeter on one may be great on one and not great on another. And you're probably going to have to do this 2 or 3 times before you get it exactly where you like it. And again, it's not hard to do once you've taken it apart and put it together. Once you know how everything goes, it's pretty simple. Just take your time. So in reducing the height of the sear and polishing the 2 contact points, the trigger's still kind of heavy. And it's kind of heavy because the hammer spring tension on this is pretty stiff. And because that pressure on the hammer spring is pushing up against that sear, that's what creates a lot of the friction, right? So polishing the sear reduces that friction so it moves easier. Reducing the height of the sear then makes it so it breaks quicker. And so those two work in conjunction with one another. I probably only removed a couple pounds of trigger weight on this. But what it did was it removed all the creep, so it's not just, you know, creeping along and you're hitting certain points in which it's stopping and starting again. And you know, the grittiness, you're removing all of that. Yes, it's still a little bit of a heavy trigger. And I think that's primarily because of the design. And I think if you've ever fired an Air Force air gun, at least the ones I've shot, none of their triggers are really light either. But they break pretty well. You know, not perfectly, but pretty well. And so I think it's part of the design, the way this is all designed. The trigger is going to be a little bit heavier. Now you could reduce that sear height so much that it'll break a lot lighter, right? But again, you have to do it with caution because if you take off too much, it will not catch the hammer and nothing works. You know, can you fix it at that point? You could probably have somebody weld a little bead across the top and start over again. but that's a lot of work. To me, my triggers, yeah, this is still a little heavy, but I would prefer, if I had two options, whether I had a light braking trigger that had a lot of creep and was gritty, or a trigger that was a little bit heavier but broke clean quickly with no grittiness, I would choose the latter. I would take a little bit more weight in the trigger just as long as it broke cleanly and smoothly. That's just my opinion. So that's kind of the breakdown of it. Then obviously you do everything in reverse. Put the sear in, push the pin through the hole of the sear, make sure that that sear portion is underneath the trigger. You will typically have to hold the trigger back to capture that sear portion while you're then putting the two plates in. You put the first plate in, put the spring back in, put the trigger guard plate on, and then push this all the way back down, put in the screw, and try it. See how you like it. If you need to take it apart again and reduce the height a little bit more on the sear, you can do that. Again, it's not rocket science. If you're mechanical at all, you won't have a problem doing this. All right, so I just wanted to start with that. It's not uncommon. You know, I can't tell you how many of my air rifles that I've had to do some trigger work or adjustment to. Crossmans, you know, the pistols are kind of this way. There's no adjustment on them. And so what you have to do is you have to take the sear section out and you polish it and you reduce it some. And many of the air guns are that way that don't have adjustable triggers. I was worried that this was going to be a lot more difficult to take apart. It's simple to take apart. Just take your time, be careful, and again, you should be fine with this. So there's my little kind of tip on this. Again, remember, this thing is an incredible value, has all these fantastic upgrades that I think should have been done on the Air Force but haven't over the years. I gave you a discount code the other day, 15%. I have another one that's 22% off right now. It's an early Black Friday special. So look below for the link and the code. If you're interested in getting this, you can go there and you can put in the code. You can get 22% off on this. It's a screaming deal. Again, when you see the final price on this, it should be a no-brainer. I mean, if you don't get one of these, you're crazy. Again, being regulated and just all the upgrades on this is a fantastic value. Fantastic value. All right, so this is what we're going to do. It's still kind of windy today, as it was yesterday. So we're not going to go crazy as far as trying to get the most accurate groups, because we're not. I mean, you can see stuff blowing around. You can probably hear it in the mic. It's windy. So we're going to just do what we did yesterday. I'm just going to take, I don't know, 10 more shots. And we'll put it down range, 40 yards. And we'll use the same metal target down there. We'll take some headshots on that so you can see the accuracy. And we'll just repeat that as we did yesterday. So why don't you hold on a second. I'm going to go down. I'm going to set up the camera and get it turned on. And I will be right back. All right, I'm back. All right, so we're still going to use the AEA 15.9 grain pellets. Again, with everything that I have and I tried, I think these work the best. I tried some others that some other tried and they thought were really good. They didn't seem to work as good for me. Yeah, this isn't really fully broken in yet. You know, again, you want to put some 2, 3, 4, 500 rounds through these before they're really broken in all the way. So we're just going to use these pellets again. Let's do 10 shots. Also, I didn't mention, when you have everything apart and you look down underneath here through everything, once everything is removed, you'll see the barrel. Now this portion up here with the whole mechanism, it slides on the barrel. So what I did while it was apart was I had, while I closed the breech, I put some good silicone grease around the barrel, so this way this slides back and forth a lot easier. Also, while you have everything apart, some silicone oil on all the moving parts inside the trigger assembly. It's a good thing to do. as I mentioned the other day, on this trigger shoe, lower it to it's about 1.5 or 2 millimeters off of the trigger guard. That helps give more leverage if it's down farther. So all these little things will help a little bit. All right. I don't have my chronograph out today, but again, yesterday these were running in the low 890s, just so you know. The trigger is so much better. It should be 7. This should be the last one. All right, there we go. 10 shots. Again, nice little group. Again, I consider this a great hunting rifle. Will it put pellet on pellet like a like $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 target pellet rifle? Not that I have seen. Again, I'm outside. It's windy. These groups will tighten up if I can catch a day where the wind isn't blowing. But the accuracy is really nice, as you can see. Again, that's that target is actually probably a little bit bigger than life size. But still, good group. No problem taking headshots at 40 yards on things like this. So, again, when you factor in what you're getting for the price, the accuracy you're getting for hunting, the simplicity of taking care of the little flaws in the trigger. I mean, this is a great value, and I can't imagine that you would be unhappy with it. There were a couple weird reviews. Just let me touch base on this. There was a couple weird reviews that I saw about it malfunctioning and firing on its own. I don't even see how that's possible, just so you know. After taking everything apart and looking at everything, I don't see how that's possible. I always chalk things up to user error, and all air guns are a little bit different, and you have to really kind of understand how each works based upon how it's designed. Keep that in mind. How this is designed, which again is pretty much the same as the Air Force rifles. And if you use it as it's designed, again, I don't see how this thing could ever misfire. It just couldn't. So again, I don't know what was going on, but I just wanted to say that because somebody had mentioned something with the trigger, So I looked at a couple videos and I'm like, I don't understand how they're doing it. One person modified his trigger heavily. That could be a reason why. Again, if you take that sear down too much, the trigger sometimes will release. It's no different than if you're adjusting the hammer spring on a regular air gun, and you're adjusting everything. There's a point in which things won't work, right? There's too much hammer spring tension on it, and it won't catch. Or if you're adjusting the trigger a little bit too much, the sear doesn't catch. There's a lot of things you could do wrong, in which make it unreliable. So again, I always chalk it up to user error. That's what I do. Error, however you want to say it. All right, so that's all I wanted to say for today. Again, we're going to do more videos on this. I just wanted to mention that. Again, keep in mind, if you want to get this, now's the time to do it. 22% off if you use my code. That's a little bit more than just their regular Black Friday special they have going on right now. Pinty is coming out with some really good stuff. They're modifying. I know they're coming out with the second generation of their bullpup soon. And they got a couple other air guns in the works. So there seems to be this moving towards making more air guns. And from what I have seen so far, they're doing a great job at it. It's always the case when a company first starts making air guns. There's going to be some little bugs you work out, and so they're doing this. Seems to be they're great to work with, so I wouldn't worry about it. Also, I think they have a 90-day price match if you bought something from them, and then there's a sale that goes on, or the sale increases, like with this. If you took advantage of the 15% off the other day on this, if you get a hold of them and you tell them, hey, I have a 22% off code, could you correct the difference? They'll do that. Now again, when you see what the price of this is after the 22% off, if you don't get this thing, you're crazy. Take advantage of it, and I assure you that that you'll be happy with it, based upon the price, based upon what it is, based upon the accuracy you're going to get out of it for hunting, all those things. All right. Open up down below, look for the link, look for the code for 22% off, and until next time, shoot lots, be safe, and we will see you again soon. Take care now.